Never seen a smile so big on my little old lady's face until I tell her I'm going fishing all weekend. Pack up all of my bacon, I make plans for 7:45, and I swing around, pick up my date for the weekend. Some reason she seems to please when I'm leaving. There's something I'm missing when I'm gone fishing. When I'm gone fishing. When I'm gone fishing.
Yeah, baby.
Yes, sir. Nice to see all our regulars here. Jeremy's in the house. How you doing, my friend? Tony's here. Eve, always a pleasure to see you, Eve. Lloyd, as always, my friend, it's a pleasure to see you. Jay, nice to see you. And yes, happy Canada Day, long weekend. Hope everybody had a great fishful kind of weekend with fun, family, and lots of fishies. Steven, how you doing, my friend? Mark Wolf, actually, we have an announcement, Mark, you probably already know about, that's going on at Lake Nipissing. George Morgan sent it to me. We'll be talking about that tonight. And, of course, the one and only Steve Shaw. How you doing, bud? Steve and Walter have been holding down the fort. As I said, it has been a great weekend of weather. If you enjoy the kind of weather we've had, depending on where you are in the world or in Canada, but it's been a very busy weekend for me on call, and a tip of the hat to Steve and Walt for holding down the fort. You guys have done a fantastic job. I've just managed to cycle through a few of the edits that you folks have posted. And if you are interested in posting or having your kid, grandchild, a friend across the street, your wife, your girlfriend featured on our page, and have one of our editors do a fantastic job of just, making it top shelf and making it look like the front cover of a magazine, please go to our Canadian Fishing Network Facebook page, press message, and you can send a message. You can give us a story of the picture, but we will do an edit from the inbox. We call it the inbox, and Steve and Walt have been doing a fantastic job keeping up with that. So big round of applause for Steve and Walt. And, of course, a big shout out to my colleague, Chris Church, who was looking after me tonight so that I can be here to do this with you guys and girls. I'm on call this weekend. It's been crazy busy. We had a lot of house fires, a lot of damages. So if I look tired, I am. I'm not going to lie. But tonight, I have it all covered. And a big shout out to Chris for that. So let's get to some of the announcements. Joe Moore, nice to see you. Happy Monday. Absolutely. Corey's in the house. I thought I missed you, Corey. So one of the beautiful things about CFN is we have meet and greets, and our Saskatchewan chapter, who I'm very, very proud of, is having one this weekend. CFN Saskatchewan meet and greet. Pasha, I'm not going to pronounce that, like Pasqua Lake in Echo Provincial Park. I can say that. It is this Saturday, July 8th, 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. So it's a big day, and I know there's going to be food, there's going to be fishing, there's going to be fun. They always have a great time out in Saskatchewan when they have these meet and greets. If you want to go, if you're interested, Walter is the gentleman you need to get in touch with. He puts on these events, obviously not always by himself. Usually he has his sons involved, or Lloyd helps out, or the whole group, Kelly. There's a bunch of Daryl out there that step up to the plate and help put these on. I believe Gord is helping out with some of the food. So this is going to be quite an event. And these are usually on the shoreline. They might be going out in boats. I'm not 100% sure if they are doing it out on the water as well. But if they are, that just takes it up a notch. But if you are in the Saskatchewan area, interested to learn about CFN, interested to do some fishing with some really cool people, head down to Echo Provincial Park and meet some of our glorious Saskatchewan CFNers. Looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. And thanks to Walt and everybody involved for putting it on. Also, I wanted to mention this is for you, Mark Wolf. This is the Lake Nipissing Walleye Tag Challenge. And I'm sure, Mark, you already know about this, so it's probably not going to come as a surprise. George Morgan shared this with me. From July 1st to September 4th, 2023, anglers on Lake Nipissing can participate in the 2023 Lake Nipissing Walleye Tag Challenge, hashtag Tag Challenge. Prizes will be awarded throughout the event, with $500 going to the angler who reports the first tag fish and $1,000 to the angler who reports the most tag fish. Prizes are always awarded through random draw, so every fish entered counts as a ballot, very similar to how we do it with our CFN Fish Off. This is a pilot project to evaluate if the mobile app MyCatch can provide useful data in support of walleye tagging. So it's interesting to see, of course, the partners that are involved. MyCatch stepped up in a huge way. Of course, the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry are doing so as well, and Bay Tackle Supply has also stepped up as a partner. So you've got a lot of folks that are dealing, and there's more partners, I'm sure, that will be jumping on board when this really starts to gain some popularity. In the spring of 2023, the Ontario Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry tagged nearly 1,000 walleye in Lake Nipissing and are encouraging anglers to report these tagged fish. This is part of the ongoing efforts within the ministry to explore new methods of engaging anglers in support of fisheries research, management, and conservation. Music to my ears. Now, if you are interested, I did not put the link up, but if I go to comments, I'm hoping it'll be there. But currently, the ministry is using tools such as roving creel samples as the primary engagement with anglers. Mobile apps offer another way to connect, and this is where the MyCatch app really steps up. Now, the first question a lot of folks would ask, what fish are tagged? Are they going to be in the slot limit? Like, can we actually catch these fish, or are they going to be outside the slot and we're not going to be able to properly report it? We're going to be holding them longer than we should. No, these fish are within the slot, and they are all considered legal fish to keep. If you want to find out more, and I don't know if the link is up there. No, I don't see it there. But anyway, I will post the link later tonight with a bunch of the pictures to have all of our folks that live in the area fish that lake, get up to speed and sign up. Because, I mean, who doesn't want free money? It's kind of a no-brainer. What's up, Bruce Downs? Nice to see you. Rocky's in the house. So on that note, one of the, I would say, coolest pictures, and there's many that I like that came out of our CFN Fish Off this year, was this one with Samantha, Brooklyn, and Ava. Really love this shot. It captures what we're trying to do here at CFN and in the industry as a whole. We want to get our next gen excited about fishing, passionate about fishing. And I'll tell you, these three ladies right here, we have to watch them because they are going to be taking over when the time comes. As mentioned, July 1st was the end of the CFN Fish Off, but the prizes and the dishing out of those prizes is just beginning. So tomorrow, Tourney Tuesday, Mike and I will be again giving away more, announcing some winners. We do this at the end of every one of our events. So you'll have probably two or three lives, 2 or 3 Tuesdays that we'll dedicate to this, just to make sure that we're awarding and giving people their props. But what I can't wait to see tomorrow is how many fish were caught and submitted. It's staggering. Like, we've already broken like CFN records for us. So we'd never seen the number of fish submissions as we have this year. Absolutely incredible. So congratulations to all you anglers out there that participated. Love you all for doing that. it means the world to have that kind of support and dedication to what it is we're doing. And of course, Shimano, these lads and lasses stepped up to the plate in a huge way and provided some incredible prizes, which we will be giving away and getting to in the coming weeks. So stay tuned to that. Of course, it would not be a CFN Live if we did not announce, of course, our retreats. CFN Retreat 5th Annual is happening up at Horwood Lake Lodge this year, August 14th to the 19th. Sorry, 13th to the 19th. We're looking for folks that want to go. There's lots of rooms still available, so please get in touch with Warren and Doris. And if you're not sure, have a look at this. This might sweeten the pot. Around the corner, August 13th to the 19th. You've got a little more than a month to get signed up, but if you want to go, there's room for you. So please reach out to Warren and Doris and get your butt booked in a bed. Also happening in September, you've got a few months for this. This will be the 2nd annual OFC Nation retreat at Camp McIntosh, the one and only Camp McIntosh. Please get in touch with Andre and Tracy. They're filling up. There's not much room left at Camp McIntosh. So if you're interested, please reach out to them and get this done. Get them booked, because we need to put the cabins together. Same at Horwood, same idea. So if you can help us out, and make sure you make the call, pay your deposit, and we'd love to see you there and join in the fun with all these folks. Where are you going, Don?
Camp McIntosh.
Yeah, baby. McIntosh is the destination. The date is September 22nd to the 24th. Love to see you there. As I said, reach out to Andre and Tracy and make sure you get your butt booked in a bed. The big band's up next, right after a word from our sponsor.
Yo, yo.
Big Jim McLAUGHLin. How you doing, sir? Yes.
I'm alive.
Oh boy. Well, you look fantastic. Did you enjoy your Canada Day long weekend?
It was kind of, I don't know.
It was. It's kind of why I said that. If you enjoy that kind of weather, it was your weekend. But
it wasn't that. It just everything was wrong this week. Like,
oh yeah,
yeah, just one of those things. What it was. Only one of the good things was I went to the gym both days.
got it, boy. Good for you.
So I went to the gym Saturday and Sunday morning. I was there with the ladies. It's so funny. There's a young lad that comes in there, a big, strong boy, tremendously strong. Not as big as me or as good looking, but anyways, the ladies there, two of them are firemen. I think they're both firemen. I'm not sure, but one for sure because she's got the license plate and everything. And she's like stupid strong. Like she's doing pull-ups, like looking over the bar like 15, 20 at a time. Like, and no momentum swings to get up there or anything like that. Just crank it, eh?
Yeah.
I'm doing my thing, whatever else. Anyways, when I got there at first, he was in the parking lot, and I looked back behind him because on the weekends you got to tag the little thing to get in the door. And I tagged it and pulled the door up and looked around. He'd gone back to his truck, so I go in there and Lacey, one of the trainers there, she yells over to me, "Big Jim," whatever like that. And I go, "Hey guys, gather around quick." Okay? So the three of them run over and stand in front of me. And I go, "Dreamboat's right behind me." They all like him. He's a young guy, but he's such a really nice guy. It was cool. When he left the gym yesterday morning, he's like tremendously powerful too. And he's a wrestler. That's what he's in there doing. And I was watching him. You know, you have that thing you can use for a sled, the harness that goes over your head to strengthen your neck. Well, he's got 200 pounds on it running around the gym. Wow. And then 200 pounds on it backing around the gym. You know what I mean? That's the kind of stuff that he's in there. So I'm sitting there doing my thing, and I was doing my rowing. And I was very happy on the weekend. I've got back to doing some of the exercises now with really low repetitions, but just a shitload of weight. Mm-hmm. And I was doing rowing. I back to 160. But just by the time I get to 8-9 reps, my arms and my shoulders are just burning, eh? So you know you're doing good, eh? And he walked past and he put his hand on my shoulder and he says to me, "Good on you being here on the weekend." So that's the mentality in a gym like that. That's not everybody running around with pink and yellow pants on, and you know. Yeah. There's no treadmills here. Yeah. There's no treadmills. There's a couple of bikes. That's it.
Well, some of us, don't need the sled. We could just run around the gym because we already have the 200-pound. But I digress. Jim, I wanted to share something that I saw this week. It's from Z-Man, the wonderful people at Z-Man. I don't know if you've seen this before or if this is just new to me. And
the new trailer?
The rattle.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's been things like that around. We used to use them. Them. They were more not as an injector type thing, but they were more as more of a coring tool.
Yeah.
That you would put it in, and it would sort of like it would get some of the rubber out and leave a bit of a hole for you to slide a glass rattle in. But this is really, really cool. In fact, I shared this on my page.
Oh, okay. Because when I saw this, I'm thinking this is exactly for someone who loves their plastics like I do. This just sends it up a notch.
Because we'd sit in the hotel room at night, take like a bag of 50 of the craws that we used. Yeah. And you'd have to fiddle around and get the rattle in between the eyes to get it just right so it wasn't in the way of the hook, Right. Stuff like that. But this makes, for people that don't do it a lot, that makes it really easy to do it.
Now, would this work with all soft plastics, Jim? This type of application?
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure.
I would think so as well.
Why not?
We and as I said, we have our beloved North Shore tackle that we use and we push and love. You catch a lot of fish with. This will only add to that presentation. As I said, as a plastic lover, I have to say.
I've always said too, a lot of people don't realize it because you can't see them, but fish do have ears, so to speak.
100%.
They hear very well, and it never hurts. Yeah, it's not so important when you're fishing. Truly believe it. Like for smallmouth, the way things are now, with the clarity of the water,
Hmm.
you know, they don't need to be attracted. But like if you're dropping a craw down into a dirty old patch of milfoil out in the lake,
Yeah.
uh, a little bit of noise like that. That's why most of the jigs come with rattles. But you'll see now a lot of the things they call them, stealth jigs and stuff like that. They have no rattles in them.
Yeah.
Like they have them both available. So it's a pretty cool thing. But yeah, no, that's something that is definitely something that is not going to hurt you to use. Not going to hurt you to use.
So it's I could use for piercings. Jeremy, it's a good question you ask. Are the rattles safe for this fish? Now with the Z-Man product, I think everybody knows by now. Z-Man is almost indestructible. So you know that your plastic is nearing the end of its life on the end of your hook when it comes to Z-Man, and most plastics for that matter, So I would have to say, Jeremy, you wouldn't let it go to that extent, but we still lose plastics. And yeah, I'm not 100% sure what it's made of, but I'd like to think that it's not lead. That
Most of them are glass.
Yeah, glass or
just pass. If a fish ate them, they just pass through.
Yep. 100%. And we're going to get to that with Lawrence's segment in regards to passing through and what gets back in our waters. But George, you do point out, as always, what could go wrong with a 5-gauge needle in a rocking boat? 100%. Yes. As Jim said, do it in the hotel room. Do it on land. Don't try and do it out in the boat. 100%. Great advice there, George.
You got to be prepared.
Yeah.
See, this is it though. Eh? For most of the time, the guys that are using that stuff are sitting in a bass boat that weighs maybe 1,800, 2,000 pounds. Before you load it, it ain't moving around that much. You're sitting in a 14-foot tinny in the middle of Lake Nipissing. Yeah, it's moving around a lot.
100%.
Yeah.
I know in Lawrence's segment too, we're going to be talking about forward-facing live sonar. Jim, I'm always tempted to, as much as I love talking about new technology, I never like to abandon what we used to do and some of our old techniques. And we have talked at great length about the paper charts that you used to do, the Javex bottles that you would lay down. This forward-facing live sonar, you mentioned that it's a lot of tournament anglers. It's a must-have. Could you be in MLF or bass, the bass circuit without live sonar? Could you compete?
Yeah, you can, because there's still guys that don't use it.
Okay.
There's still guys that don't use it because, like I say, when you have a tournament in an area where all you're fishing is lily pads, stuff like that, it's not so much of a factor. But like I told you about when I was out in the Bay of Quinte here with Captain Greg there, he, I mean, I always knew that fish move from the boat. That's common sense. I've seen footage of divers swimming, and the fish go out around you and they come back in. But it was really cool for me for the first time that I watched it while trolling. The way the fish just sort of meandered, they stayed 50 feet ahead of you, 30 feet, whatever it was. And then they went out to the side. And then Greg said to me, now watch the boards. And both the boards went off at once.
Wow.
So those fish were not shocked. They were not scared. They just moved away from something that was a little different,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's just like when you drive down the road and you see a crow on the road and he's trying to pick something off it. And he just goes over to the edge and waits, and then you look in the rearview mirror and he's back. It's no big deal. It's just something going by, and I think that's the way that they look at it. But no, there's no doubt about it. If you're fishing smallmouth in open water, boy, that's forward-facing sonar is a huge thing, an absolute huge thing.
100%.
Yeah.
And Steve, you've shared a great link. Anybody that has not seen this, please go over there and read. It's basically a breakdown of all the electronics that we have now, where we are in terms of the technology, where we're going. They talk about how it affects the fish, a number of things. But I will say,
they've always heard sonar.
Yep.
That's why, like when Rocky and I were fishing, and we spent a lot of time in milfoil, up to maybe 15 feet deep, 17 feet deep in some cases. As soon as we were where we wanted to fish, all the depth finders were turned off in the boat because they hear that ticking. I've gone under the water and listened to it. You hear it plain as day. You don't have to be a fish. Now, did it scare me? No. Does it scare the fish? Obviously not, because when we started fishing, we didn't just turn it off.
Right.
And we caught I think we caught almost as many fish. I didn't really see a difference, but we definitely turned it off because there was some times where we just sort of thought we're having a hard time getting bit. Maybe just add that one more little thing into it because it's a game of odds, eh? But you're looking forward-facing sonar, and the guys say to me you shouldn't be allowed to do that and whatever. And I said, well, then you should leave your boat tied to the dock. How do you get the fish on the far side of the lake? When you remember when you used to fish off the shore? They go, no. I said, well, I do as a kid. We didn't have a boat.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've got a lawn demo sitting here. I'm sitting in the lawn chair last night. Actually, we're going to get the boat put in this week.
Beautiful.
We're going to get it put in this week. There, Lewis is going to come over and dump it in for me, and
good.
I'll have it there. I'll be able to get out. But it's just where do you draw the line? We've talked about this a few times now, Scotty. And where do you draw the line? I knew guys that came when Spot Lock came out. And Spot Lock to me is an absolute dangerous tool.
Can be,
absolute dangerous tool. If you don't have to know a lot about fish. If you got Spot Lock, because that's one of the biggest problems I always tell people when they're ice fishing and they catch a fish. How did they catch another one? They put their line back down the hole. When you're trolling and you catch a fish, what do most guys do as soon as they get the fish in the boat? They just keep going.
Or stop and start jigging.
Yeah, the odd one.
The odd one.
The ones with all the trophies.
No. That's right.
I remember being in the boat muskie fishing with Mark Thorpe and Ted Takasaki, and I had that discussion about guys. And he turned and looked at me when I said that, eh? And he said, isn't that the truth?
Yep.
The skilled guys didn't do that.
Yeah.
The people that are just out on the weekend having fun, they don't realize they drove over a fish, it bit their line, they caught it. There could be more there. There may not be, but what did they do? They started the motor and they kept going away from those fish.
Very
Where
true.
with Spot Lock, you see the guys now fishing MLF. When they catch a fish, first thing they do, you see them step on it to lock the boat in place.
And really, it depends on the kind of angler you are and what you enjoy doing. Some folks love to troll. Some folks just that's the style of fishing they love.
What they do. Yeah, because they're not the only thing they're out there for is maybe to catch a fish, to have dinner, and just a little bit of enjoyment, get out in fresh air.
Yeah.
And I understand that 1,000%. And then there are people who are so competent at trolling, it's scary. Like I've told you the times fishing with Mark Thorpe. And he wanted his lures to run between 24 and 26 feet deep in the Ottawa River most of the time, or the St. Lawrence.
Yeah.
And if you hit 22, you turn the boat left. If you hit 28, you turn the boat right. He kept you right on that depth. And if you were steering the boat because someone else was bringing a fish in, he'd look up at the depth finder and have a bird. Let the boat slip into 29 feet of water. Egad. If they're going to eat it, they just have to swim a couple of feet for it.
100%. So, Jeremy, I hope your question was answered. I wonder if all the use and availability of sonars and electronics, how much damage it may eventually cause to fish and the ecosystems. I don't know.
Not as much as diesel trucks.
Oh, that's totally another subject. Jay Pierce, he was on St. Clair last week with Bass Pro tour guys and watched them follow schools around and nail them while all they could do was blind cast. So, yeah, absolutely.
Now, see, in the old days, once you caught a fish,
Yeah.
you would throw out a floating marker. One of those little styrofoam things would unwind, and you had your spot marked, and you'd fish around that, eh? And I actually had guys one day, where was I? I think it was on Pigeon Lake. Come by and try to pick up my marker, and I yelled, "Hey, that's mine!" Like there, guys. I'm marking a patch of weeds there.
Yeah.
Well, what the hell do you need to do that for? Like because you didn't think of doing it. It's like anything else, and all these things. Where do you draw the line? You had a boat, then you had a motor, or you had oars, then you had a motor, then you had electric motor, then you had a depth finder, then you had an electric motor that did this, an electric motor that did that. Like we've talked about the pixels on the things 100 times, what the depth finders were when I was fishing in tournaments. That's why we used flashers.
Mm-hmm.
Because it just like they just work better because they're instant time. And as far as I'm concerned, if you're just looking for the bottom, they still do a better job because there's no microprocessor.
100%. George, great comment. This is enlightening stuff. Electronics have improved angler success rates. I would say yes, they should. We noted whether ice fishers on Lake Simcoe and Lake Nipissing were using sonar last winter, and those anglers using sonar had a higher catch rate and were more successful.
Oh yeah, I believe that 100%.
So, I would like to think that if we're spending this money to purchase this technology, it should be working for us. And in most cases, if you're just someone that likes to know where the bottom is, these are far beyond what you need to spend.
Yeah, I've been ice fishing with a flasher for 25 years.
Yeah.
I have no problem seeing fish on it once you learn it, and people think that's archaic now.
Yeah.
And look at how many they still sell.
100%.
And how many are still used. I got 2 or 3 of them sitting up in the cupboard. Well, you can see one right there behind me.
Yeah.
See it right there? That's the box. And that fell 28 or FL 30. Yeah.
If you're looking for someone to join you this week, Steve's made himself available. He's managed to take some time off. Wink, wink, nudge.
Oh, he wanted to go fishing. I saw the wink.
Yeah, some great discussion. George, I love what some of the comments that you bring to us and share with us. The concern for fisheries man is that angler efficiency is changing, so it becomes difficult to compare catch rates over time. Yeah, 100%. I couldn't agree more. But at the end of the day, too, we have to also look at people's lives. I think folks are working a lot more and a lot harder. At least the older generation. I'm not so sure. There's a debate out there suggesting that our younger generations love that balance, that life work balance. How that looks.
They want a 2-day work week.
Well, so how that looks like to them is maybe what is the conflict. But regardless, if you are someone like myself, busy, you get out on the water, you want to be able to find fish, and what better way than to use electronics? So thank you to all of the technology producers out there that have provided a means of being efficient while out on the water. So for that, I'm thankful. Will I ever buy a live front-facing sonar? I don't know. I don't really have a need for it, but I suppose if you are a tournament angler, you're kind of get left behind if you don't.
Yeah, it's one of those things that it's just a matter of time till more people have them. But with the cost of them, it means a lot of the people will never have them. I mean, if you do the number of guys that are fishing, like that are, quote unquote tournament fishermen, they're guys that are at it tooth and nail, that are hanging on to their life by a quarter of an inch to have all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And you go look on Facebook and see all the stuff that's for sale, and you wonder why all the tournament circuits aren't full. The cost of all this stuff is starting to eventually catch up with a lot of the guys that were borderline before. It's starting to catch up. I mean, you see huge amounts. You see boats on sale. Used boats are not hard to find. Forget about COVID. They talked about used boats are not that hard to find now. You just have to know where to look. When someone's looking to sell a $125,000 boat for 95 or something, the bass boat places are out there, and if you know where to look, you can find them. It's a tough time to be a tournament fisherman. Let me tell you, it's
100%.
If you want to do it, But see, that's the problem too, is that 99% of these guys doing that, they got to go to work all week to pay for all this.
Yeah.
And they got to pay for their house, and they got to pay for their family. And then on top of it, they've got another mortgage payment for a boat.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to be trying that.
No.
No.
Couldn't agree more. Jay, you bring up a great question that I'm sure folks would love to answer. If you want to answer, leave it in the comments. Jim, would you rather?
100%. Hey, our good buddy whom we lost there recently, Will Wegman. When we did the thing at Gagnon's there about 5 years ago one day, and there was a guy came out to me in the parking lot, and he said, "Big Jim," and he asked me a question about a flasher. And I put the tailgate down, and I got the flasher out of the back of the truck, out of the seat, and I put it on the tailgate, and I was showing him what he wanted to know.
Yep.
And I looked around and he had put it back in the truck for me. He pointed to it, it's back in the truck or whatever. And unbeknownst to me, he left it running.
Oh boy.
He didn't say. He was thinking about getting one and he wanted to know something. I mean, he was a good guy. There was no intent of anything,
Mm-hmm.
And we got to Lake Simcoe the next day, and we walked out to where we're fishing, which was from about here to, I think, close to Nunavut. That's on the far side of Simcoe, I think it was.
Jim does this just to make sure we're paying attention.
Yeah. George, I think I was getting close to you up there. But anyways, we got over there, and I realized it wasn't working. And I realized it was dead because there was a guy there, and I said to him, can I borrow your battery for a second? He goes, yeah. I plug it on. Yeah, off it comes. I put mine back on, it's dead. So anyways, Will had went back to the truck to get something. So I went over to Chonger and I says to him, I says, hey, I'm out of here. I'll meet you at the hotel. He goes, really? I says, remember I told you if I ever didn't have a flasher with me to ice fish, I wouldn't fish? He goes, like this. I go, yeah, I'm not doing it. I'm just going to, frustrate the hell out of myself having no idea what's underneath me.
Yeah.
And I passed him halfway back, and he didn't believe me. He saw me lugging the fish trap and everything. He didn't believe me. He thought I was joking. He thought something had happened. He said, nothing happened around. You don't have to leave, do you? I said, no, I don't have a battery. My flasher's dead. And he was absolutely shocked that I left. So that answers that question. Yet you see me go fish behind the house here.
Yeah.
And if I didn't bring the depth finders, it wouldn't make a difference to me.
Yeah.
I know what I'm looking for. 9 times out of 10, I can see it, but it's a little shallow lake, and it's the only thing it's good for. You saw me when I fished last year. I used it a bit, just to have the trail on the screen to know where I had fished on that flat.
100%.
And I would move over a little bit, so I had black lines at 1/8 of an inch apart, so I knew I wasn't fishing the same water again. I was either side of it. Stuff like that is very, very handy to have it for. It's not just all the other things. People don't realize, why do they have those trails? Well, when you're offshore, you don't know where you've been or where you're going in those trails. They're 100%. Very, very handy, and it's just another use. Well, and George mentioned before about anglers. You've heard me say this 1,000 times, that at the Sportsman Show, when I started doing seminars back in the late 80s, early 90s, when it really got big, when we were doing all the tournament fishing, when it came to question period at the end, you guys would ask you, three quarters of the times you got asked, where's the best lake to go fish? What's your favorite color? What's the biggest fish you ever caught? Now they ask you questions, and I'm up there going, okay, so you got to think for about 15 seconds. Yes, because they know a lot more, and that's the whole difference, and that's what this is doing. It's just taking everything to a higher level, and it's just getting better and better as we go. I wouldn't want to be a fish.
100%. Well, this is what Erica said. I think it'd be game over. Imagine if everyone had those forward facing. Yeah, it would be game over, Erica.
Three quarters. Even almost all the fish are being put back in the water anyway.
That is true.
Yeah, you got to remember when we were kids, if you caught fish, you kept them.
Yeah,
you brought them home to eat. That's it. There's a whole new mentality now about catch and release.
Yes, and
that's that's why I just see some things the odd person do and stuff. I witness stuff at the boat launch here that I sometimes I have to bite my tongue. I have to bite my tongue because I can't say anything. And some of the travesties I witnessed, I've actually made calls to the MNR several occasions with license numbers. Because when you see people come back to a boat, and there's 4 of them in a boat, and they fished all day, and they have 2 or 3 5-gallon pails full with pike tails, bass, anything that bit. I will not hesitate to report that. And I think it's almost your duty. And if anybody thinks you're being a rat, so be it then. It's got nothing to do with being a rat. You're probably the first person to complain. You can't catch a fish when you go fishing. But you got people who are just blatantly abusing it. It's not good.
And this is the thing, Jim. I think this is why, and George, I appreciate your comment when it comes to, every once in a while we got to keep some fish too. It's all about.
Oh yeah, there's nothing wrong with having a fish fry. Look at me. I kept some when I went with Greg. I told him I want to keep 2.
But I do believe, George, in all fairness, there's a lot of unreported catches that go undetected, just as Jim has said, that I think are keeping our stocks where they need to be. So yeah, I would hesitate on wanting to pull back that agenda of catch and release, just because I think there is still a lot of take going on.
Yeah, no, and you have to be able to keep fish if you want to. Like I have guys come to me and they say, I've had a few guys over the years tell me that, well, I do that to feed my family.
Yeah.
I don't make a lot of money. Well, you got a $90,000 boat. You spent $150 on gas today. You got $3,000 worth of rods and reels sitting on the deck. Don't tell me you have to go fishing to feed your family. It's because you choose to. It's not because you have to. It's not that you're desperate and you're broke.
Yeah.
And you pull out the car topper and go down and catch some fish. That's a different thing, and that happens.
100%.
It's there's a lot of people out there that aren't blessed to have enough money to get by sometimes, or all the time, and something like that's a different thing. It's a completely different thing.
And there's a discussion here about GPS units. You don't even have to go out and buy GPS units. You have your phones. These smartphones are we're not far away from these phones taking on a life of their own when it comes to the electronics technology that we're talking about when it relates to fishing. It won't be long. We already have apps that will allow your screen to become the fish finder.
Yeah. The number of times I'm having a conversation with people and you go to your phone for the avionics or whatever to show them something or somewhere. Yeah, no, for sure. And ice fishing. The guys walking out on the ice you see them holding their phones.
Yeah.
They're like this with their phone. They're following the GPS on it.
So. Yeah. And Mark, this is one of the reasons that I want to upgrade my sonar is for the mapping ability. This is something that we haven't really had a lot of in the past. This technology is relatively new. It's almost as new as live sonar, really, is the map, the ability to map. And I think this is the most underrated aspect of these newer units is their mapping potential. Yes, we can get navionics chips, but as Mark mentions, not all charts are bang on. And with water levels, it changes. So you can remap a lake if it had a historic flood. You can remap. But I just think it's brilliant, and it doesn't get talked enough about. Mapping is a really unique tool that I think.
I had a buddy going on vacation at one of the lakes I used to fish a lot, and I went on his unit just out here at the end of the laneway with him to show him some spots. And I'm looking at him and I'm going, well, that's not right. That's not right. He said, what do you mean? Are you sure? I said, hey, trust me. When you find a pile of rocks the size of 2 pickup trucks in the middle of a weed bed and you've won probably 50 grand off it, you remember where it is, And I went and got the old paper charts and showed him all the stuff.
Yeah.
And the paper charts are far more the old ones that I've got. Yeah, there's a lot of new stuff that added now on that. But I showed him 4 or 5 things. There's a great big series of rocks on one of the bays in the Big Rito that isn't even on any of the charts. It's on nothing. And the number of giant fish I've caught. In fact, I was trying to explain to a guy the other day. He told me if I was to go to Big Rito and I was to fish like with slip bobbers and big 8-inch golden shiners, trying to catch a true giant largemouth bass, where would I do it? And I told him one spot that because I know of 2 or 3 fish in the area over 7 that have come. I know of the only legitimate 8-pounder on a scale I have ever seen. Came right off all this stuff. And and it was put back on it too. The guy drove all the way back from Rito Ferry, like a 20-minute ride each way, just to put the fish back on the top of that little rock.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, you hear me talk about Jim Kane and Larry Allard?
Yeah.
Cowboys from Massachusetts. Yeah, Jim Kane caught that fish, and they just wanted to get it on a real scale, and they kept it in the boat and put it in a big cooler and brought it up. They brought it in the restaurant and put it on the scale in the kitchen in the back, and I think it was 8 pounds 8 ounces. And he went down. They brought it back in the big cooler, put it right back in the boat at the dock at the restaurant, not at the hotel, right at the restaurant, and zoomed back down the lake and put it back on the top. But I was showing to the guy, and this isn't even on the map. Mm-hmm. And it just makes you wonder. That's probably the reason why there's so many big fish on it.
Yeah. One thing I did want to mention that is a question. And a lot of folks don't really know if it's a proper thing to do, if it's an unethical thing to do. or if it's an illegal thing to do. But as Richard has mentioned, and I've done this too, we do it every year up at the CFN retreat. We share our fish. Some people have the opinion that you can't do that. You can't donate your fish to someone else. Any truth? And I'm hoping George jumps in here as well and clears up this debate, because there is a bit of a gray area there that folks are unaware.
I don't think that's any kind of a law.
Yeah,
I wouldn't think of it, because the number of grandmas that get fish, and
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, I go up here. Well, I wouldn't do it here, but if I caught a bunch of fish, because there's nothing I would want to eat out here, except maybe some crappies, and I invite you over and you eat some of them. Is that
what's the difference?
Yeah,
what's the
I don't know.
difference?
Maybe it's one of those little obscure things that's in there. But I've slipped the odd fish to a lot of people.
Yeah,
a lot of people.
And this I don't ever see happening, Mark, but it's a good thought. The networking, let's 2 to 5 units to communicate waypoints. I'm assuming that's all on the same boat, Mark, because I doubt anybody wants to share their waypoints with people.
Well, I think Hummingbird just brought some new thing out. They just started to advertise a couple of days ago. It'll be at ICAST.
Yeah,
it has some new networking capability on it.
And I think that's the next thing, is having all your units be able to talk. And of course, people can't have just one unit on their boat. They've got to have one at the helm. They got to have one at the bow. And now, if you're trolling and you like that style of fishing, you got to have one at the back facing towards the cockpit. Having all these units talk to one another is becoming essential.
I was watching a guy here last year, one morning, practicing for one of the tournaments on the St. Lawrence, and I had brought my lawn chair down, the little folding one, and I was sitting on the dock by the sightseeing boats there about 6:15, I guess, in the morning. I just had a rod with a little jig on it. I was sitting there drinking a Hortons, minding my own business. Yeah. And this guy came along the docks, and he looks at me, he goes, "Hey, how you doing today?" And I said, "He's got an American accent." And I said, "Not that bad." And in his boat, there was 3 units on the dash, and there was 3 on the bow. So we had 6 units there. And then he sort of circles around a little bit. He went way out around me because I was fishing from the shore. He was so polite. And then he came back along from the right-hand side, and he says to me, he says, "Is that your truck up there?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Oh, I'll be, that's really cool." And whatever, he started talking to him. He was talking to the guy for like 15 minutes. I found out he was from Georgia. He wasn't one of the big names, but, it just goes to show, though, he's got 6 units. And, they weren't lesser units, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I got some more new stuff this week. I got one of the little Shimano Zumvernos.
Oof.
Which is it's got flash boost in it too, but it's how small it is. You can see how small it is. It's just the length of my finger.
And is the flash boost the whole length of the bait, Jim?
No, it's just up at the front.
Okay. Yeah. I was going to say, because I couldn't see the separate. Oh, yeah, there it is. All right. Yeah, there it is. All right.
I don't know what it. Yeah, it's got some color over it, so you.
Yeah.
I don't know if I turn it upside down if you can see it. No, it's not going to show through, but you can see it. I can see it flashing though.
Yeah.
With those, and it just goes back to the same old thing, and then we've got the other little one here, the Amber, which I already showed you before. You can see the flash boost in there.
Yeah.
You can see it moving. It's got the same color, but once again, it's how small they are.
Yeah.
They're only like, one is 3 3/4, and this is only 2 1/3 inch. Very, very nice little small bait if you're looking for small crankbaits. This is so small you might even have to throw it on a spinning rod. You might have to. It's that small. Did I say that?
Yeah, love the boost. Absolutely, Steve. Yes, and you could say that and a whole bunch more, Jim. But save some for next Monday, and we'll get to a whole bunch of other topics. But Jim, as always, dude, thanks for being here. Thanks for doing what you do. Thanks for passing on the passion and creating the framework of what this industry now looks like, and are appreciative we have.
My pleasure, buddy. I do it because I love it. You know that.
100%. And I don't know anybody that loves it more than you do.
Hey, did you see the pike I caught last night?
There you go. Right on.
Fly in pike territory out back.
That's hilarious.
So I got to tell you before I go, I'm out there. And of course, they came with the big weed eating machine, and they cleaned out in front of my dock. So I thought, give this a couple of days, some room to manipulate here now. The or some room to move, and the fish will be in there for sure. They'll come out. They'll have an edge, not just a big solid pock mark. Because I'm getting sick of fishing the frog and just watching the weeds all go back down because they can't get through it. It's just thick. Eh? So the guy brings the machine out, and I said to him at the dock when I went by, I said, "Oh, be careful over by the boathouse and the other town dock there." I said, "It's really thick over there." He goes, "Yeah, this is what we do for a living, you know." Like 20 minutes later, the thing is sunk.
No way.
Sitting on the bottom. They had to unload all the weeds, and of course, because it's on pontoons, as soon as it got the weight off it, it came back up.
Right.
The back end was up now. The motor was out. They got the motor started. He had the cowling off, and he was cursing, eh? And then the day after, they were back to do more for the township. But I was coming home, and he was coming down the hill here, you know it, toward the boat launch. He's driving past, and he looks at me and goes like this.
Why? Because you were wearing that special T-shirt that says, "I told you so."
Oh, my God.
Oh, boy, Jim.
Anyways, kiddies, hope you
some
all had a great Canada Day weekend. Be proud to live here, boy. We all like to complain about this place, some a little more, but it's still one of the greatest places in the world. That's all there is to it. Wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
Amen, brother. Amen.
I'm not going to the lawn chair tonight. I'm tying jigs.
Well, good for you. Right on, dude. Well, listen, thanks for all you do. We'll see you next week, Jim. Keep on.
Be good, kiddies.
We'll have Lawrence right after this word from our sponsor.
When it comes to Canadian food, we've got your back with flavors like lemon pepper, beer batter, campfire barbecue, lemon pepper dill, garlic butter and chives, and crispy Cajun. We've got a mix for every meal. Whether you're serving East Coast shrimp, West Coast salmon, succulent walleye, chicken wings, or veggies, we've got you covered. Coat your food in outdoor flavors. Available online or at these fine retailers.
Lawrence Gunther in the house. How we doing, Lawrence?
Good, buddy. How are you?
Fantastic. Listen, I put together a little video, something I wanted to share.
Mm-hmm.
I know, we put this together last minute doing the live tonight, and it's always my fault just because of how busy we're at work. But there was something that I saw that flashed by my news, and I had to download it. Richard shared it with me as well. A few folks caught it. But we've always talked about, what we're finding in our water, and it's not starting to get close to home. I want you to have a listen to what I'm about to share.
To the rainbow darter, a tiny fish that lives in the rivers of southern Ontario. If they're downstream from a sewage treatment plant, the male fish turn into females.
If you expose them to wastewater, they will feminize. They will have eggs in the testes.
What's causing the males to develop eggs? Human hormones, residue from prescription drugs that are flushed into the river. Using new highly sensitive equipment, scientists are finding an increasing variety of prescription drugs in the waterways. Painkillers, blood thinners, chemotherapy agents, hormones, antibiotics. If we swallow it, scientists can find it in the water.
Some of the drug comes in us and through us and out of us totally unchanged. So we actually have active drugs going into the waterway through our urine or feces.
Last month, a study of First Nations communities found levels of 3 prescription drugs in one southern Ontario river that were the highest in North America.
The highest in North America.
Yeah.
There's a lot in that little, and it goes on. If you want to see the full, it's over on CBC News and the National, and I want to thank them for making that available to us. But wow, that's shocking. I mean, I guess it's not shocking. Where does it all go? But dude, like, what are we going to do with that? And I think Richard brought up an interesting thing. Do we now start using outhouses so that the soils can properly break down these compounds, these elements, these drugs? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, a lot of cities that aren't connected to rivers or lakes actually use sort of holding ponds, right? So it's still processed sewage. It's processed level 3. So what's coming out of there is really water and nutrients, and maybe some chlorine, depending if they chlorinate or not. But then it goes into a holding pond, and that holding pond has lots of weed growth, a lot of plant growth, and the plants help lock the nutrients and all the use up the nutrients, and they lock a lot of the contaminants into the soil, into the roots, so it doesn't leak out. And then that just evaporates, right? These ponds just sort of evaporate, or the water soaks down into the ground very slowly. But this is what people are saying we should be doing with a lot of our sewage treatments. Just because you're located near a lake or a river doesn't mean you should dump your sewage right into that lake or river.
Yeah, I agree, and I think folks that have septic are a little more sensitive to this topic. If you're putting it in a drain, it's out of sight, out of mind, right? If you're hooked up to municipal sewers,
yeah,
it all goes down. And the other thing that is concerning to me, and yes, Mark and a bunch of others said this isn't a new topic. You're right. We've talked about this before, but a lot of the science and the research has been on coastal waters. It hasn't been in our own backyard to this degree. And this research is still going on. And it's going to be scary, I think, at the end of it to find out what the results are, because this is only going to get worse, in my opinion, right, Lawrence?
Oh, and the septic system treatment plants, they're not filtering this stuff out. They're not filtering out microplastics. And now we know that microplastics are getting into, our fish, into the, they're eating things that eat these microplastic particles, and then the fish eat that, and it's actually becoming part of the fish, right? It's not just being passed through the fish like an old worm or something like a piece of plastic. It's actually becoming part of the fish's muscular tissue. So what else is is being accumulated in the fish that we're eating, that we're flushing down our toilets? We know that the PFAS chemicals, right? Scotch Guard and fire retardant and all the waterproofing stuff that we put on our clothing, and every time we wash stuff, it comes out a little bit and goes down the drain, and that's forever chemicals. That stuff never breaks down, gets bioaccumulated in fish, and now just about every human being in North America has PFAS chemicals running through their body, and we know these are carcinogenic. There's no doubt about it. So, you're starting to see all sorts of legal action being taken by governments to stop companies from pumping PFAS chemicals into the treatment. I just listened to a 6-part podcast about 3M, who invented Teflon for frying pans. And they, in the manufacturing of Teflon, there's a lot of byproducts that they were dumping. And they got caught, doing it. And now there's another court case of them, that's going forward, another class action court case of them doing it. So, yeah, there's chemicals going into our system. But how do we test for this stuff? And who's got the capacity to test for all this? There's so many different chemicals, like just the PFAS chemicals themselves. There's over 2,000 of those variant types of PFAS chemicals. Yeah. And one has to be tested for individually.
And at the end of the day, I don't know what the resolve is. I don't know what we could possibly do. Jay actually shares some personal experience this is the previous comment. I worked in a water treatment for 17 years. One of the biggest areas of growth was treating endocrine disruptors, chemicals in wastewater treatment plant, effluent. And the biggest problem is birth control pill residue. And we've talked about this at great length, that it's interfering with the reproduction of wild animals. Jeremy asked in that segment, they were talking about the testes filling up with eggs.
That's birth control pills.
Can a fish still reproduce when that happens? I would think not.
Well, no, because you're ending up with just female fish. Right. So there's no, whether they can or can't, they're female fish, and there's going to be more female fish than male fish, and then there's no male fish to reproduce with. So that's a problem. And we see this, this sort of results has been found in many parts of the Great Lakes, on the St. Lawrence River below Montreal. The chemicals and pharmaceuticals in fish, it's not uncommon now. Those big floods on the Fraser River a year ago, they found there was a lot of cocaine in the fish, because a lot of people, a lot of flooding, overflowing, and went into the rivers, and there was all of a sudden there was a lot of cocaine in the river. So, we have the equipment now to test for these things. These tests aren't cheap, and you have to ask for these tests. So if you're not asking for the tests, we don't know, right? You don't know what you're drinking. and what you're consuming. So yeah, we need to start asking. There's no doubt about it.
It's a great segue into our next topic. But before we get there, there's a few things in the comment section that I wanted to bring up. And Ed, you are 100% right. And I encourage everybody to watch this movie that hasn't. Blackwater talks about the 3M coatings. It is horrible stuff. I know they dive into the dramatic side to show you how bad it is, but it really is that bad. But Blackwater is a great documentary for you to watch. And of course, Corey brings up, I think we should go back to using cast iron frying pans. Well, I will have to say, as Jay Pierce alludes to, a proper cast iron pan works better anyway. And I think cast iron is making a huge comeback in the kitchen.
For a lot of things, my cast iron frying pan, my 10-inch cast iron frying pan is on the stove all the time. Like my wife just finally said, look, don't even put it down in the pot cabinet anymore. Just leave it on the stove because we're using it all the time. There's no point lifting it on and off of the stove. Just leave it right there.
Yeah, 100%. And Jeremy, yeah, I get the joke, but really, cocaine being found in fish is troubling because it would suggest that we're using it at an alarming rate for it to show up in the fatty tissue of fish. But no one ever talks about marijuana. Like, I mean, now that it's legal and people are doing it openly and freely and what have you, no one talks about the levels of that being sent back into our waters and what
you use it and it shows up in your pee for 6 months, right? So if you have before when employers were doing blood urine testing, you had for pilots and such. And my friend's an airplane mechanic. He had his urine tested all the time. He said marijuana absolutely was out, because it could show up for 6 months in your urine.
Yeah.
So it stays. It's passed through your urine, and it can come out for sure, and it goes in the water. Now, is it going to cause fish to be, stoned or lethargic? I know, there's some people on the St. Lawrence River that said the muskie, because of all the antidepressants, are very much more lethargic than they used to be. But who's to say that's just one guide's opinion?
The light, I don't know if you saw the light just went on. What should happen for these folks that use CBD oil and cannabis, because it's an organic product? In most cases, it's an organic product. Depending on how you grow it, you get different additives, but it comes from the ground. All of the other stuff is laced with chemicals. It comes from the pharmaceutical industry, and a lot of folks are making cases that CBD and the benefits of cannabis far exceed what pharmaceuticals are providing. What they should be doing is this kind of research to say, hey, listen, at least our cannabis will treat this, and this. And when it gets put back in the water, it has absolutely no effect on the fish. Whereas, all of these other painkillers that are driven by pharmaceutical companies, they end up back in our water and they're turning, our male fish into females. They have 3 eyes. This is the kind of thing that they should be pushing, because I'll tell you, if they ever got on that track, it'd be hard to stop it.
Well, it gets back to, if we can't filter it out through sewage treatment, should we be putting treated sewage back into the water system, right? I mean, I know the Great Lakes is, if you are only allowed to take water out of the Great Lakes, according to the International Joint Commission Treaty, you're only allowed to take water out of the Great Lakes to use in your community if the treated sewage goes back into the Great Lakes. And you have to prove that it's not just going into the ground and the ground is connected to an aquifer and then that goes to the Great Lakes. No, it's got to be a direct connection. The line comes out of the Great Lakes and goes into a river that's directly feeding into the Great Lakes, or with a pipe going back into the Great Lakes. So that's to me, that's that was a way of saying, it was a way of preventing far-flung communities from pumping water out of the Great Lakes, transporting it, considerable distance by pipeline, and then using it and then just dumping it into holding ponds or settling ponds, right? Because then if you had all these communities doing that, where do you draw the limit? We could be supplying Las Vegas and Los Angeles and places like that. They just keep building the pipelines and the Great Lakes would go down and down and down. So that's the rule. That's why they set up that rule. But does it make sense anymore? Maybe we need to look at that rule and say, look, we shouldn't be encouraging municipalities to pump their treated sewage back into the Great Lakes. We should be saying you should be putting that into settling ponds and using Mother Nature to break these things down over time and lock those things into the roots and soil and sediment of the holding pond. We need to start thinking about that. And it's going to cost more money. And we won't be able to use as much water as we're using now. We'll have to become much more efficient on how much water is going through our home because, these settling ponds can't be the size of the Great Lake. So we're going to have to say, well, maybe we need to be more water efficient in how we use the water and how much water is coming out of our homes. So it's going to mean a lifestyle change for us, right? That's where it comes down to. We think, just into the toilet, flush the toilet, pull the plug in the drain and it disappears and it's all fine because it's getting treated. But in reality, the only thing the sewage treatment plant is doing is taking out the floaties, right? The things you can see.
Yeah. And to Jay's point, he takes us a little bit further. The amount of water that is consumed from Lake Ontario and I'm sure other Great Lakes is enormous. Mm-hmm. And if we were to ship all of our black water, dark water, gray water, whatever you want to call it, off onto settling ponds on land, I can't imagine the size of ponds that we would need in the course of one day, how much water is pumped out of our Great Lakes for production purposes, for sustenance, or cleaning. Like I think we've lost touch of how much water is actually being consumed out of our Great Lakes.
We're very spoiled in Canada. I mean, look, we have 20% of the world's surface fresh water. We're a relatively small population that has the second largest country in the world. We have extensive access to water. It's never been a big issue. We brush our teeth with it, they spit it back in the sink, goes back in the river. Like I'm on the Ottawa River. It comes in one end of the city and goes out the other end. In reality, there's no waste. We're just using it and it's going back into the river. Right. The little bit, where does the evaporation take place? When you pee out and you're behind your garage because because it's more convenient. So, the loss is pretty minimal. So we got a little bit lazy. We got a little bit thinking, well, that's a good system. But now the science is starting to poke holes in that theory.
Well, of course, we have these tankless water heaters. We have instant access to water. We flick a tap, we turn on a valve, and we have water. Jeremy, that you bring out what I consider the old school approach, and those who live on septic systems are very concerned about water consumption because you want to make sure that your septic system can keep up with the overflow. If it becomes just like we're talking about, where it's just in and out, you're not doing your septic system. You're doing it a disservice, for one, mm-hmm. and you're probably going to be pumping your tank out a lot more often. So, needless to say, those who are on septics do and are very conscious with the amount of water that they're using. So I don't know, maybe
and people on wells too, right? I mean, if you have a drilled well, you just don't leave the tap running, mm-hmm. Because your well has to recover, and you think, my well recovery time is this much. I got to be super careful how much water I'm drawing off the well, so it doesn't keep running dry on me when people need it. So people learn to be careful. But I think we've lost that, but we maintain this philosophy of what you said, out of sight, out of mind, where we just toss things back into the water and it disappears. And that worked for thousands of years just fine because everything we tossed in was organic. It's not that anymore. It's not organic.
Some great comments. We can't even get on to the next topic. There's so many great things.
Well,
brings up something that I didn't know. Natural alternatives are about to be very difficult to get in the near future. I think Bill C-447 slipped in with the budget. So more pharma and less natural remedies that have been used for centuries. What would this mean for our waste? Well, I don't think it's a good thing. I didn't realize that this bill got passed. That's kind of disturbing. I mean,
well, no one makes money from natural treatments, right? No one, where do you make money if you're making tea out of birch bark and shaga and things like that? Who makes money from that? No big pharmaceutical companies. They just passed in Australia. It's legal now to use hallucinogenics from magic mushrooms as a psychiatric treatment medication. It's not good for everybody, but it does work. So they just have to figure out who's going to package that and sell that. But it'll happen. I mean, the same way they figured out how to sell CBD and THC and marijuana. So things are coming. I think where there's a demand, where people have demand, there'll be a response, and we just have to make the demand. We have to make our demand heard.
Unreal. And then Jay, just to give a synopsis of water consumption, City of London, which is not a huge city but it's 440,000. That's a good number, but it's not like Toronto or whatever. But it's a good number of people. They use 130,000 cubic meters of water per day.
4 million people, and it's not. It seems like a lot, but if you have the settling ponds and they work effectively, and there's evaporation taking place and settling, it is doable, right? It is doable. So we just have to create these systems. We just have to engineer them into our planning, as opposed now, before we just had toilets and down a pipe right into the river or right into the lake. Nothing stopping it. And now we have to think about that. But you know what? We also have to think about that for our stormwater, right? Because the salinity level of the Great Lakes is going up a little bit every year because of road salt. So if we're gonna put treated sewage into settling ponds, we should be putting our stormwater into settling ponds as well and get the salt out of it, because that's affecting the Great Lakes as well.
Yeah, and as Jay said, based on the technology that has been provided for these treatment plants, we don't have that kind of time. Settling takes time, and it's a process that unfortunately we have had to get away from, simply because the demand of sewage that comes through these plants is overwhelming. And on days that it rains, we all know how much effluent gets tossed out, like it would up at the cottage. But anyway, needless to say,
there's a lot of commercial. I think 60% of what's going into sewage treatment facilities is commercial activity, right? So not just restaurants, but industry as well. Yeah. And in industry, if you look at how much water it takes to process things, it's incredible. Like a pair of jeans, or even like it's just absolutely incredible. I'm not gonna start to say numbers because I'll get them wrong. But when you start looking into it, it's absolutely astonishing how much water we use in manufacturing, and that's all going through our sewer treatment facilities too, and the chemicals as well, right? That go into that water. I mean, they have to test to make sure. They have to keep records to show that they're not dumping toxins into the sewers, but they're dumping it into the sewers. They're not dumping it into the backyard, into the ditch behind the factory. They're not dumping it into the river. They're not dumping it into the storm drains. They're putting it into the sewer, and it's being processed. So so it's not just us and our toilets and sinks and showers and stuff. It's more so it's commercial activity industry.
Right on. Well, on that note, let's move on to what is upcoming. I believe the event has already started. You are going tomorrow. You brought a lot of water sampling kits with you. Tell us what's happening tomorrow.
Well, Ottawa Fish School, right? This is Dover Court has been putting on the Ottawa Fish School, and then they look for organizations to actually run the program. And Dover Court's a community center in Ottawa. So it used to be Ottawa River Guided Fishing. Yannick Loringer did it for years. And now it's Ottawa River Muskie Factory and John Anderson and Bluefish Canada and some other great folks. Sale helps out. Shimano helps out tremendously. And so it sold out 6 weeks of Ottawa Fish School. So kids register for 5 days. It's not a sleepover; it's a day program, and it's we sold out 6 weeks in about 3 days. It just it's the hottest summer program Dover Court offers. So we'll have they start on Downs Lake Monday, and then they move through different rivers and shoreline fishing opportunities. And by Friday, they're out on the Ottawa River on boats and pontoon boats fishing for for fish on the river with using sonar and other technology and learning how all that works with guides on boats. So at the end of the 5 days, they've experienced a lot of capture. They count the number of fish being caught. Every kid catches fish through the week, so no one's going home empty-handed. Well, they're probably going home empty-handed, but they've got memories. That's what I'm saying. And it's a wonderful program. And we're not just teaching them to fish and catch many fish and big fish and so forth. We're also teaching them conservation, fish handling best practices, selecting the right gear, lead alternatives and circle hooks, barbless hooks, when to use those, the right nets, the different tools for releasing, fish identification, invasive species identification and management and prevention, water testing. So, things like water clarity, oxygen level, water temperature, those are 3 basic things we all look to, right? As anglers, the first thing we do, we look at the clarity of the water, we look at the temperature of the water, and we wonder about the oxygen level of the water. And we use our nose and smell the water and think, oh, this doesn't smell good, but can you imagine you had the right tools to test for that? And then what other kinds of tests would you like to do as an angler? We've got some tests in our test kits that can test for minerals, that can test for chlorine. So minerals would be released, say, if someone used too much fertilizer just before a big rainstorm, and a lot of that fertilizer got washed into a river, that would show a lot of minerals. Nutrients like phosphate, we test for that. Chlorine, so if people were emptying their pools and pumping that chlorinated water into the storm drain and that was flowing into the river, chlorine is not healthy for anything that's living, obviously, and excessive amounts. So we could test for that, but there's a lot of things we could be testing for or should be testing for, and we're not testing for. And it just comes down to cost, how to take the sample properly. We had those fish kills on, 2 or 3 fish kills in a row. I think it was 2018 or 2019 on the Otto River. And no one had the equipment to test the water, even though we were within 6 hours. Everyone was made aware of that fish kill incident, where it took place and where the dead fish were. And no one knew how to take samples of the fish, take samples of the water and what to test for. And before you knew it, it was all washed down. It was sort of mixed in with the main current of the river from the tributary came out of. So it was diluted, it was dissolved, it was broken down, and it was impossible to take a proper water sample after that. But now, Otto Riverkeeper just moved into their new property on the Otto River, and they built a big laboratory. So now they can take water samples, right? So that's going to be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what they discover.
It will be. And, getting back to, of course, water and the treatment of that water, some people switch their pools. I was one of them that decided I didn't like the chemicals, didn't like using chlorine, so I went to a saltwater pool. Mm-hmm. I'm wondering if that uptick in salt has any relation to what we're finding in our Great Lakes. But I don't know if I've made the right choice. Chlorine it's a hazardous chemical. It does, as you said, rob water systems of life. That's what they're designed to do. It's designed to break down bacteria and compounds and what have you. But to Jay Pierce's point, salt dissolves, doesn't settle. So is having a chlorine pool better than a salt pool? Or are we doing more harm with a salt pool than a chlorine pool when we offload our water?
Chlorine breaks down in the sun. So if you put chlorine in your pool at night, like I do, in the morning, within half an hour of the sun hitting your pool, what's left of the chlorine that was in there overnight is pretty much broken down and gone. And you can just tell by the smell. Like if you go in there at noon, you will not smell the chlorine anymore. It's gone.
Great point. Right on. What else is going on in Bluefish Canada home and environment and news and everything else that you guys are doing?
Well, we're going to take a run out to New Brunswick this at late July. Parks Canada has invited us to come and tour the various processes and facilities and meet the people involved with rebuilding Atlantic fish stocks in the Bay of Fundy area. So this will be quite exciting. We'll have 3 days of tours and guided and meeting people and visitations, and we'll be documenting all that with some video, some pictures, some podcasts, and super excited about that. We just finished nailing down the dates on that. So I think we're starting on July 31st, and then August 2nd and 3rd, and have three pretty action-packed days for sure. And then we got to get there, right, and then move around. I mean, so there'll be a fair bit of transportation involved. But we're actually going to Grand Manan Island as well. There's some activity going on there as well. So around Atlantic salmon, yeah.
So I expect there'll be a lobster boil at some point. Right?
You know it, man. I was looking forward to catching some mackerel, but mackerel fishing's closed, and from overfishing.
Is it closed? Like, it's just seasonally it's closed.
Yeah, it's closed. It's just closed. You can't catch mackerel. Yeah, so they're lobster fishers are going nuts because that was the bait they put in the lobster traps, and tuna fishers were also going, what the hell? But the tuna fishers got a special exemption because they realized without the mackerel, and they don't need a lot to put on their hooks, but without that, the whole tuna guided fishing industry was dead in the water, and the commercial industry as well. So there's even the commercial. It's like what we watch on TV with Wicked Fishing. It's all hook and line. It's all hook and line in Canada, commercial and recreational.
And the one thing that I would love for Wicked Tuna, and of course it's difficult for them to do it, is to get into more of the hands-on when it comes to the fishing. I didn't like the road that they went down with all the drama between the teams and what have you. They've gotten away from that, which is cool. But I love you sit out there and you hear the infamous beep 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 from the fish finder, and of course the zing of the. But there's a lot of other stuff that I would love to learn along the way that leads up to that. Sometimes they add oxygen to the water where they have the bait fish, and that makes them more lively. Maybe there's a certain chemical that they bathe their, and of course the secrets they don't want to give out. I get it. Yeah. But they're highly migrating fish, extremely migrating. They're constantly on the move. Yeah. They're absolutely enormous. And I can't imagine how much they eat.
Yeah, no kidding. And these fish come out of I think they winter in the Gulf of Mexico. I mean, there's two, there's ones on the west side of the North Atlantic, where they come out of the Gulf of Mexico and then come up the coast of North America, the east coast of North America. And then there's the bluefin tuna that come out of the Mediterranean, right? And then they say that some of these tuna actually cross the Atlantic back and forth. So no one really knows. I mean, I wish I knew more about it, but it's just astonishing. And I remember interviewing a gentleman, a lobster fisherman who a lot of them had a license to catch one tuna a year. It was just a way to make some money, and he could go out and he'd drive out an hour and a half out of Halifax Harbor. Within 30 minutes, he had the fish. You reel it in an hour or 2 hours later, onto the boat, an hour and a half back. A lot of driving, but very little time of fishing. And he's showing us the marks on his fish finder out there. And there's he's just showing us, he saves his fish finder views on his Lawrence. And it's just, okay, here's a view, and you see 10. Another view, you see 30. Another view, you see, 14. And it just, drop a line, boom, you're on them. Absolutely, the bluefin tuna population is getting pretty well managed, but they certainly head up to Canada. Wicked Tuna doesn't talk about that, right? But no. Either you can catch them out of Nova Scotia or off PEI. It depends where they end up. See, Fishing Canada did an interesting show on that. Should I tell you quickly how they did it?
Go ahead.
All right, so they fished for 4 or 5 days, with a guide. And if you're not in the right place, you're not in the right place, right? You got to be in the right place. So after 5 days, and their film window was just about to come to an end, so the guide said, "Okay, we got one more alternative. We're going to go out to where the commercial boats are." So they drove for half a day, and come over the horizon, and they see just a cornucopia of bird life and dolphins and these big boats, giant fishing boats, and just all sorts of sea life and marine life. And they go over to one of the boats. They get a few buckets of mackerel, and then they start driving away from where the netting is going on, and they just every 30 seconds or so they drop a mackerel over the back of the boat, and they're luring these bluefin tuna away from where these commercial fishing operations are going on, because they didn't want the commercial fishing boats to be in the film, right, in the background. So they kept driving until they were far enough away from all that activity, and then they drew another mackerel out, this time with a hook on it, and boom, hooked up. And that was in a 6-hour fight later with Pete and Reno and I sort of Angie, and they got their fish, they got their tuna, but this is what they had to do. They had to beg and borrow it off the commercial fishing industry.
Wow. Incredible. Incredible story. Lawrence, just before we let you go, is there anything else that you wanted to mention that's upcoming?
No, it's all hands on deck with the youth now. Look, I'm trying to get more time away from the computer and more time in the outdoors. So yeah, I may be disappearing from time to time. If you're looking for me online, if you're looking for social media, we're trying to post when we can. And but everyone needs a break from the computer once in a while. So and get out in nature. And so be patient. We'll have all sorts of content come the fall again. And but we'll be taking a little bit of pause on the newsletter and some other in the podcast and just getting out there and collecting the content, meeting the actual people, and getting out there and just being in nature.
Right on, buddy. Well, if it puts a smile on your face, we're happy to see you do it.
Thanks, buddy, man. And then you too, man. Enjoy your fishing, buddy. You've been working so damn hard yourself. You need to go fishing more too.
100%. Today was just about getting caught up. I don't know how many messages I had that I still haven't gotten to all of them. I would have liked to have went a line, but there was just a lot to get done today, and I'm thankful that we're going to have a shorter show this Monday, so that I can get back at it and get to helping out our editing team feature all of our CFN community. But Lawrence, on that note, thanks, dude, for all you do. Keep up the great work, and we look forward to hearing next Monday the tales from the Ottawa Fish School.
Right on, buddy.
All right, dude. You take care of yourself. All the best, my friend.
Thanks, Scotty. You too.
Okay, bud. That's it. That's a wrap. Thanks to all of you who joined us. Thanks to all of you who watch, who support the show, like the show, leave comments. I love the comments. And this, I'm hoping, is going to become one of the most interactive podcasts that there is. We'd love to hear your thoughts. We'd love to hear your opinions. You guys do a fantastic job keeping it within the confines of good taste and supporting and not being critical and negative towards others. That's the CFN community. That's what keeps us all going. Steve, I'm sure I'm right in your world. It's no different. Walt, you can speak to that. Erica, Mark, CFN is a wonderful place to be. And we're happy and proud to be a part of it, as I'm sure you guys are. On that note, Turdy Tuesday is next week. Turdy Tuesday is tomorrow, as well as next week. We're going to be doing CFN Live as we do every Monday. In the meantime, look for Turdy Tuesday tomorrow. Look for Walleye Wednesday on Wednesday, and all of the wonderful work that's being done at CFN because of the Walters, the Bealers, and the Steve Shaws. On that note, I'm going to leave you there. I love you all. Take care. Have a great and safe week. It's a short week, so it means you're going to be fishing that much sooner. Dave, it's time, buddy. Take us away.
Well, as much as I hate to admit it, I guess we've run out of time. So I've enjoyed it, but I'm going to do something I haven't done since season 1. Turn out the lights, the party's over. They say that all good things must end.